These are the solutions for the first 20 problems on your pre-test, the number 5 test on the no calculator part. Keep in mind that there is this reference page that you see at the front here, which many students forget because they just turn past it, and it's out of sight, out of mind. So problem 1 is just basic, straightforward y equals mx plus b algebra 1 days. So you have a y-intercept of 1, a slope of 1. So you just simply fit that into the equation, and there it is. Okay, what is the length of arc, minor arc AC? So that arcs equal their central angles that subtend them, that cut into them. So it's a fourth of the whole circumference. So if the whole circumference is 36, then that length is 9 because it's 90 degrees, which is a fourth of 360 degrees. So the arc measure is 90, its length is 9, based on being a fourth. Number 3, the best way to do this is to be really good at factoring. So common factor of 4, that gets pulled out, and then you have to figure out two numbers that multiply to -3, and at the same time add to -2. And those would be -3 and 1, and then you take the factors equal to 0, the zero product property, and then solve. So add 3, subtract 1, those are your two solutions. You could also go about it the hard way and just test in these points. Remember that you don't have a calculator, so you'd have to be good at doing some things in your head. And B is the one, when you come upon it, that will make a true statement on the left and right side. Problem 4. So which of the following is an example of a function whose graph in the xy plane has no x-intercepts? So a quadratic with no real zeros. Okay, everything else will have an x-intercept or can have an x-intercept. Problem 5. So we're letting x be 9 and then solving for k. So add 9 to both sides, square both sides, subtract 2, and just make sure you double check that back in. Sometimes you can get extraneous roots when you're squaring both sides, and that does check back in. Problem 6, which of the following is equivalent to the sum of these expressions? So adding them together, the ones and the -1 would drop. So you would have a squared plus a as a result. 7 is all about language and putting the $3 amounts together. So you know the $3 amounts have to go together, and you see that in every possibility. And then at least 220 means greater than or equal to 220, and no more than 20 means less than or equal to 20. So that one that works is C, that fits that language. So that's finding the right language problem. Problem 8 is about the, I guess, y-intercept. So you're trying to, what's the best interpretation of the number 331.4? So that happens when T is 0. So 0 degrees Celsius, you plug that in, you get 331.4 meters per second for the speed of sound. Problem 9, this involves a little bit of, first of all, solving for y on the second one. And so when you do that, you distribute the 2 through, and ultimately, so the 6's drop out, and then you get 2y equals 2x, and then divide by 2. So y equals x is what the second equation simplifies into, believe it or not. And then from there, you take these two equal to each other, x squared equals x, and then solve it out. 4x with that, and then you've got to factor again. Okay, there it is. Just pull out a common factor of x, and times x minus 1, set each equal to 0, and you get 0 and 1. And then you need to figure out the y values by plugging in 0 and 1. Back up, you can use the top one, or you can use this one, either one. And so you get just the same y value after you do that. So 0 squared and 1 squared. If you use the top one up here, will give the same thing. What is, so they want x is greater than 0, so you have to consider just that solution. So then you take the product up here, and that is 1. Problem 10, which of the following is equivalent to 4z plus 8y? Okay, so you need to multiply both of those by 4, and then you need to multiply both of these by 8. So 4z is 4, you distribute the 4a squared plus 4b squared, and then from y equals ab, you multiply both sides by 8. And then you are adding those together. Okay, so 4a squared plus 4b squared plus 8ab. So which one of these, when you square it out, is going to give the sum up here? Okay, so this total sum. And really, all you need to, so this looks like a lot of work, but if you look at this first term here, you know, so there's only one when you multiply the first two together that give you the 4a squared. So literally, you can kind of be done at that point. So sometimes looking at problems, you know, part of problems, that really helps to do that. Okay, so here's the formula for a right circular cylinder, and they're saying that we have 22, and then we are doubling the radius and having the height. So if you substitute those in, what that does is it ultimately produces a 2 out here. So you square the 2, that's 4, but that gets multiplied by 1/2. So that's produces this 2. So then you got to multiply the 22 by 2 to get the 44. So a little bit of goofiness there, kind of jumping through hoops a little bit, but you have to know to substitute in the 2r and the 1/2 h, and then figure out that there's a 2 out in front, meaning that we have to apply that to the other side as well. Problem 12 I consider to be pretty hard because you don't have a calculator. So which of the following is equivalent to 9 to the 3/4? So the clever thing to do is to split this up. Okay, so like power to a power, you multiply those. So if you make the inside 9 to the 1/2, which is the square root of 9, then you can do this a little easier than usual. So the square root of 9 is 3, but you've got to know to do that, so that's what makes this a little bit harder. And so 3 to the 3/2 means the square root of 3 to the 3rd power, which is the square root of 27, which then you break this apart this way. Largest perfect square that goes into 27 is 9, and then 3 times the square root of 3. Without a calculator, I think that's pretty difficult. With a calculator, knowing how to enter things, a little bit difficult, but that's probably the hardest problem on the first 20, I would say, for sure. So here's like an XY table with this. So 0 cups, you have 2 bags, 1 cup, you have 3 bags, so on and so forth. So how many additional tea bags are needed to make each additional cup of tea? So as you flow down here, it's just 1 more each time. And so that's like the slope that you can look at also there. Sometimes it helps to write things out a little bit, draw things out. So you can know that this, or what you need to know, I should say, that this is a reflection about the x-axis. So what happens is that y gets replaced with negative y. You kind of always treat the opposite variable. If it was a reflection about the y-axis, x would get replaced with negative x, and then you solve for y. So which one of these is the result of that without a calculator? And that's what makes this one also pretty difficult. So you need to draw this is the idea. And you really can do it on any one of these. I picked the one that would give the right answer. But this is a graph of 2 to the x plus 1. So you got to plug in points. So 2 to the 0 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Then 1 to the first is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. Negative 1 to the minus 1 is 1/2. Plus 1 is 1.5. To the minus 2, so on and so forth. That I felt was probably the second toughest problem because you needed to know what does the original graph look like without a calculator. With a calculator, that wouldn't be too hard. Okay, this is all about figuring out the right units when you do this. So the 4 represents dollars per gallon, the 25 represents miles per gallon, and the M represents miles. And we want to end up with dollars for our units. So what one of these setups, you know, you're really looking at B or D because you want to end up with $5. So what does B or D give the correct answer? You need to really look at the units. So dollars per gallon divided by miles per gallon times miles. How does that play out in the unit canceling to give us dollars? Well, you got to take the top set of units. You can actually throw miles up there if you wanted to. Multiplied by the reciprocal of the bottom set of units. So dollars per gallon times gallons per mile, because you take the reciprocal of the bottom and multiply by the top, kind of makes it a little bit hard, and then times the miles out here. So the gallons drop, the miles drop, you end up with dollars. And so D is the correct one. If you looked at B, you would end up with everything flipped. You would have 1 over dollars. You have dollars in the bottom. So that makes that mildly difficult, looking at all the units. Problem 16. So we want to figure out the maximum number of hours, okay, whole number of hours. So here's the equation. So $60 times the number of hours, because that's the cost per hour, plus initial $10 cost, equals a total of 280. Solve that out. Now, no calculator, so you got to know how to divide 270 by 60. Well, 5 is too much. 4 gives you 240. And so you have a remainder of 30 over 60, which is 0.5. Or you could think of 27 over 6, which is 4.5. But we have to round down to 4 because we want the maximum number of whole number of hours. Or you could just guess and check. So 2 in here, yep, we're beneath 280. 3 works, 4 works, but 5 gives 310. So maybe just guessing and checking with the whole number of hours is probably the best way to do that. And don't get confused. I wrote these up. These are the answers to the problems above here. So this goes with problem 17. Solve this for P. Distribute the 2 and the 8. Combine like terms. This should not be very difficult at all. So I subtracted 5p and added 6, then divided out 6/5 or 1.2. A lot of these simpler problems are at the back, so try to get through this as easily as you can, quickly as you can, and just realize some problems you're not probably going to get as you do this. So what we need to do here is solve for y at the top. You can multiply both sides by 2. That drops the 2's in the bottom, so that gives you 2x plus y is 21, and then just move the 2x to the right. So then you got to set those equal to each other. Add the 2x, divide by 4, and you get 21 over 4, or 5.25. The SAT loves eliminating fractions. That's one of the test strategy problems that I have in the video, so it might be good to look at that. All right, so the above expression is equivalent to this, where a is some positive constant and x does not equal -2. So what you're doing is you're multiplying top to get a common denominator, you're multiplying top and bottom by x plus 2, the quantity. And so this 2 will distribute up here when you do this. So you'll have the original 2x plus 2 minus 2x minus 4 all over x plus 2 squared. And so that will crunch into just a 2 over x plus 2 squared. So that's what a is after you get the common denominator. So in Algebra 2, we're going to do a whole chapter on rational expressions like that. So here, what you want to do is figure out the supplement linear pair here. So 74 is that. And then you can look at x as the sum of 74 and 23. Or you can figure this third angle out, which is 83, and then the supplement with 83 is 97, all without a calculator. So dealing with those whole numbers and being able to subtract whole numbers is very important. So either approach on that, and that is the first 20. Some people think this is easier. I guess where they're coming from is it's probably less reading. I think it can be a little harder as far as the math part's concerned, but there's definitely less reading on the first 20. So maybe that's where people are coming from. So that's the no calculator part of practice test 5.